Hi, today we're going to take a look at the Dreamcast, specifically the VMU. I want to do a lipo battery mod because I'm sick and tired of changing the CR2032 batteries. If you're not familiar with this device, it pops in here into the Dreamcast controller, and it's a really cool device. I think it's not really been replicated in modern times at all, really. So let's get started. You need a charging board, which is a 18650 battery charging board, 5 volts 1 amp, and then we need to match that with a specific sort of lipo, one that's not too big and not too thick in its dimensions. And there's a couple of choices. I've gone for one of the smaller options just so it fits inside the VMU a bit nicer. I'm not trying to squeeze it in, but your choice. There's a couple of choices there depending on capacity. You need some wire as well. I'm talking about the gauge of about 20, just because it can handle 1.5 amps, and we're going to be dealing with about 1 amps what this charge board can offer. So now that we've got all the bits organised, we need to get the VMU apart and we can start getting this process going. This has been something I've been looking into for quite a while. The VMUs are renowned for being battery eaters. The batteries tend to last about 3 months. And I don't use my Dreamcast that much anymore these days, and I want an alternative. Not so much that I've got to, keep charging this up, but more that all I've got to do is plug this into my controller and the VMU will start charging automatically, and I haven't got to worry or mess around with as soon as I remove it or go to have a look at the VMU specifically, the batteries are going to go dead on me. This is all going to charge up internally and be a mod that I don't have to don't have to do anything with or mess around with. So first and foremost, we've got to disconnect the speaker wires just so we can gain access to the board. That's the little speaker in the front of the unit. Once we've got that out of the way, there are 2 Phillips screws that hold the battery terminals and the board into the chassis of the VMU. The positive one we're not going to need anymore, so once we've got this screw out, we can discard the metal contacts, just so that we'll be refitting the screw back in there to hold the board in, but we won't be needing the contact anymore. The negative one's slightly different. Once we've got that one out, we're going to need to trim the base part off, just with a pair of side cutters. We're just going to disconnect part of it and reuse the arm, just because it's nice and easy to butt the circuit board up against and then solder the negative terminal, and it relays that negative back to the actual board itself. So just going to trim this down, get it ready for when we actually come to put it back in again at the end. You can cut it as close as you want really to the actual battery connection. You don't really need to use it, but I just thought it was a good idea just to cut that down and reuse that little part of the board. It makes it nice and easy to butt the circuit board up that we're going to use. So first things first, we need to remove a couple of these components, D5 and IC5. Now the method I'm going to use, I'm just going to flood it with solder. If we get these components hot enough, the solder will melt and obviously allow us to extract the components. So there's the little component there, the little diode D5, and the IC there, IC5. So like I say, we get this nice and warm, fill it with solder, that little component will pop straight off the board. As you can see, it's come off quite easily. My only problems are trying to get it off the soldering iron, because when you fill it, it doesn't particularly want to come off. So plenty of solder. Like I say, it's fluxed solder, so there will be some flux in there. I haven't got to add any flux to help that. I will be adding some flux just to shine up the connections and just clean up the connections and allow it to settle down. So that's that little component off. Give your soldering iron a little clean up the pads. I did notice that I don't know if I knocked this component while I was taking it off, but there was another little resistor or something that was on there that just seemed to be a bit skew-whiff, so decided to take that off. So I'm just lifting off this IC5, getting it nice and warm, and the component will just lift off. There we go. Give the pads a little clean, make sure we've got no bridges or anything left from the process. What I'm going to do next, where component D5 was, I'm just going to bridge the 2 pads with a resistor leg that I fished out of my bin. So just apply a bit of heat to that and bridge the 2 terminals. That allows our mod to charge itself and supply power then to the VMU. Just going to trim it off there with a pair of side cutters. Once we've got this done, I'm going to do the case mod part of it. So the battery where the CR2032s went is quite a deep hole, so we need to allow some room for our circuit board and our battery. So nothing particularly technical, I'm just using my little Dremel type device to take the battery holder off right up to where the screw post was, because obviously we're going to need that screw post to reattach the battery cover, so don't trim that bit off. You can go as flush as you like. Because I'm not layering the batteries, I'm putting the battery and the charger side by side, I don't need to take too much off this. I just need enough room to clear the circuit board. Quick clean up with a file, just so there's no pokey jagged edges or anything like that that could puncture the lipo. I think that's going to be good enough. I'm just going to see what sort of room I've got. As you can see, the circuit board's got plenty of room in there. If I'd have shaved that off further, I probably could have done a layered effect where the lipo went in first, maybe underneath the charge board, but I decided to go with it this way round and have the battery and the charger board side by side. As we're doing all this sort of stuff, I think you need to do a bit of prototyping, which is what I'm doing here basically, is just seeing if everything fits without too much compression or anything squeezing or catching. And it worked quite well, so everything fitted in lovely. So I'm just going to apply a bit of double-sided tape to each component, just so that they can then sit on top of the circuit board and be fixed down. This tape's pretty good. It takes a while to cure off, so I've got time to manoeuvre and move things around and test fit stuff, so it doesn't go off straight away, doesn't seem to harden straight away, so I've got a bit of time just to organise where I'm going to put stuff and move, and as I wire this in. So the lipo basically wires onto the little charge board where it says battery positive and negative, pretty simple stuff. So I'll put that on there first and I check that it was charging okay, because this has got a USB connection on there. You can actually buy them with USB-C. You can take that USB connection off, but there was plenty, because I'm not layering the battery and the charge board on top of each other, there was plenty of room for me to leave the charge jack in place, so it was just one less thing to worry about. If I'd gone with a bigger battery, things might have been different and I might have had to remove that charge socket, but it was all okay. Okay, the next thing to do is to power the charge board. So we need to take power from pin 2 on the VMU to the earth on that little bracket that we've saved. You can take power from the side of that raised capacitor if you particularly want to, if that's an easier project to get, the easier way of getting to it. I found that pin 2 was quite large and substantial, so it was nice and easy to get to. So just pre-tinning those 2 connections, getting ready to put some wires on. That one took a little bit more heat because it's a lot more surface area. Should probably change my tip. The wires don't have to be massive, like I say, 20 gauge or 18 gauge or whatever you've really got, as long as it's not too thin. Whatever you've got, we're only looking at an amp really to at maximum that this is going to deliver, so we don't need to go anything too massive. So the 2 points are basically, they're marked on the circuit board with positive and negative. This is obviously the positive terminal, and we just need to fill that little connection there, ready for the wire. So this is going to be our positive charge in from the Dreamcast itself. So obviously power would have run to this anyway, because it does display game data and stuff like that. So we're just tapping off of that power supply which comes from the Dreamcast. Just tidy my wires up a bit so nothing gets trapped. This connection is fused internally on the controller board for the Dreamcast, so if anything did go wrong, the fuse would go in the Dreamcast itself. So what I'm going to do now, the negative side, as you can see there next to the charge jack, that's going to go from there to that little bracket that we've saved. So I just need to pull fill this and bring in my little wire. Go. That's set, so we're okay there. So we're just going to take a little fly lead round the corner and just ground that on that little stainless bracket that we've pre-tinned. So now what we've basically got is a charging battery. There's nothing connected to the VMU itself yet. So all this is doing so far is we've took charge power from the Dreamcast to charge the lipo. The next thing we've got to do is then connect the outputs from this charge board to the VMU, so the VMU now has power. But that's the first stage sorted. So just underneath that little charge board where that other connection was, we're just going to put a blob of solder on there, because that's going to be our power delivery in. Just a nice little connection there. Solder that in. There we go. I'm just going to put a little piece of Captain tape just to make sure. I know that I've put a double-sided tape under this board, so that will act as a bit of an insulator. But I think it's belt and braces. Just going to put a little bit of Captain tape there just to make sure I don't get any connection shorts or anything like that. Lipos can be, you know, a dangerous thing to work with, purely and simply because if they do catch on fire, then you can't really put them out. You've just got to let them burn. So I think it's probably wise that we take as many precautions as we can. So there's the output from that board, the positive and negative. So they're the ones that we're going to be connecting onto that. So that little red wire that we've just soldered onto the battery terminal, we're going to take that, trim that to length, and then solder that onto the board. So that's our power output from the charge board. Okay, done that. And then the earth side, I'm just going to bridge over to the other earth, because basically they're just shared, so there's no problem there. Rather than taking another wire to that post, I might as well just piggyback it along and daisy chain it along to the other connection. Get that bit of solder on there just to tin it up. And then bring those two joints together and daisy chain the earth from one to the other, so everything's nicely earthed. So now we've basically got a VMU that has charge capabilities to charge the lipo, and now it can power itself, which is great. The only thing to do now is to reconnect the speaker connection and get it all boxed up, and we can give it a go. Just trying to remember where the speaker cables went. I'm sure it was positive to the left. I don't understand why we really didn't have something like this, but I suppose the technology of the day, we were probably dealing with nickel metal hydride, was probably the state of the art battery at the time. So lipos would have been very expensive on this device. So I can understand why it didn't have rechargeables in it from when it was actually originally created. But I think this brings it nicely up to date. I don't have to worry about or mess around having to change these batteries anymore. So we'll get this boxed up together and we'll give it a go. the system shuts itself down, so it's not that there's an on-off switch to this, so it powers itself off. All you do is press the button and it comes back to life. So it is constantly powered because it's constantly keeping the date and time and stuff like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting in the time and date, having a quick look round at my saves, and there we have it. It's back in the Dreamcast. There she is. You press the sleep button and she comes back to life. Pop her back into your controller. All nicely recognised. So internally that lipo is now charging the system, and it's time for a bit of a game. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you made it this far. I'm just going to let this play out with me doing a few laps of Daytona USA, one of my favourite games. I decided to print this little 3D printable case to put my little VMUs in. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.